It's not just what they do from a business lens, but also the lens that they have, of the community that they're in. Are you honest enough to call a spade a spade?
If you're not enabling people to perform at their best, to be that best version, it doesn't matter how great that the infrastructure is.
Accepting that I don't know this is very hard.
Mhm.
At least to show it
Yeah.
is very hard.
How you make sure that anything that you do is directly linked to driving some business metric. Welcome, everyone. This is our fourth episode of Habits of High Performing Organisations. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined today by Sunita. Sunita, I'm going to let you introduce yourself first, and we're going to be having a conversation around your own leadership journey and some of the things that you've really seen that helps drive high performing organisations. Before we begin, Sunita, I'd love you to tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. And thank you so much, Johanna, for inviting me for this session, something that I've been looking forward to. Well, about my own journey, having graduated from an engineering college to getting into a organization which was into IT services and consulting, but not wanting to do the coding part, but getting straight into sales. Uh, Doing that for a couple of years and then moving into HR uh, was clearly a path that I had chalked out for myself, and different parts of HR, be it the business HR role, a startup HR, the corporate HR. And finally, I retired as a chief culture officer of a $11 billion dollar organization spread across the globe with 230,000 employees. So, yes, that's my background. And here I am advising organizations and boards on people and leadership.
Thank you, Sunita. And you touched on something that you have driven within a really large organisation, their culture agenda. And I'd be really interested to hear a little bit about from your perspective of what are the things in your view that drive performance in organisation from a cultural perspective.
Yeah. Uh, you know, all high performance organizations, they have clear objectives, clear KPIs, etc., chalked out in the beginning of the year. But the one thing that one observed is how much of it is really discussed with the team, how much of the feedback is really spoken to the individuals, how much of it is really known to the employees so that they all strive in the same direction. A lot of times, what we saw is it was more a check in the box,
Mm-hmm.
um, leading to employees not really getting the full power of what that performance management discussion should look like.
Yeah.
And we flipped it to say that, look, it's not so much about discussing the past as much as it is about your career, your future, your growth. Where do you want to go from here? So, flip those conversations more like a feed forward, flip it more where it's it's not just an annual exercise that you do. It could even be as frequently as a weekly check-in that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easier said than done, uh, but if the leadership doesn't really believe in it, then it'll go back to the old way. So the one strong thing that I did observe is any kind of a culture transformation that you want to do, it starts from the top.
Mm-hmm.
Until and unless leaders really walk the talk, it's impossible to expect the rest of the organization to follow suit
Mm-hmm.
with something that they look up and say, but my leader doesn't behave in this fashion. So,
Yeah.
so until and unless it's something that is driven from the top and it is followed through on consistently, it can't be, this is the flavor of this quarter. Let me kind of drive appraisal discussions. Let me talk about performance. And after that, I just forget about it. It doesn't work. So I think consistency is important. Leadership, walking the talk is important. And and thirdly, I think what's also important is how do you measure it?
Hmm.
Are you seeing the change, and is it sustainable enough for you to make it a lasting change in the organization? So that's been my learning, Joanna.
Yeah, and I'd really love you to expand a little on, you have been a brilliant force within, the organization you worked with, to help leaders drive that change. How does one do that? How do you get that exec leaders to understand? I often talk about leadership at the top has a disproportionate impact on the culture of any business, and therefore the performance. How do you help them see that, Sunita?
Yeah, no, good question, Joanna. A lot of times, unfortunately, leaders think they've been there, done that, seen it all.
Yeah.
So any conversation like this can kind of be a little challenging. But the good part is when they see the meter move, when they see the results of what they've been speaking about. And these are not rocket science. At least what I've seen is it's a simple behaviors. It's a day to day how we come across with one another. It's as simple as a fresh recruit who's joined the organization. What's the pulse that they get, when they walk through the corridors? Uh, because most organizations have their values and their mission statements
Hmm.
and vision statements and all of that written on the walls, but it means nothing if it doesn't get reflected in the
Hmm.
day to day working amongst colleagues,
Yeah.
right? uh, so we say that end of the day, if people have to experience your values, it's nothing but the mundane day to day interactions that they have with one another.
Hmm.
And if those interactions are not one where they come together as a team, if
Hmm.
it's not one where they want to collaborate to win, if it's not one where the client success is at the center, you can stand on your head, but this is all that you will get, because end of the day, it is these people coming together, working as a team,
Hmm.
which is the force that makes things happen.
Hmm.
And you may have the best processes, the best systems, the best architecture, but if people don't really use those systems, if they don't really um, see the value in adhering to those systems, if there's no recognition at the end of it, as a simple example,
Yeah.
if people, then it becomes just a check in the box and you really don't get the value of it. So my firm belief is for leaders to really get the best of their teams, one, they need to walk the talk, and two, they need to create that safe space for their teams to really bring their whole selves to work.
Hmm.
And I think that's where the magic really happens.
Yes, yes. And uh, that being able to bring your whole self to work, that and I absolutely agree with you, Sunita, that you can have the best systems, have the best processes, but if you're not enabling people to perform at their best, to be that best version, it doesn't matter how great that the infrastructure is. And one of the things that I see organizations really struggle with is really being able to demonstrate any ROI from L&D activity. And so often we focus on the capability that we are developing versus the outcome that we're trying to drive. And I know that you've spent much of your career really focusing on how you make sure that anything that you do is directly linked to driving some business metric.
Yeah,
How do you do it?
yeah. No, again, at least when it comes to the learning and development, I'm sure every organization has fat budgets around it. But unfortunately, it all boils down to how many people attended this training program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the entire metric that you show is on number of trainings held and number of people who attended it, and that's it. you know
Mm-hmm.
at the max, you might go one step further to say, okay, in we will track it for maybe a quarter to see whether there's some change that has happened on account of this leader attending this program. But what happens after that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that consistency to say that, if this is the behavior change that I expect, did that result in that leader forming a habit out of it so that it doesn't die? So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you can kind of carry it through the entire chain, is when you really see the power of these learning modules. Otherwise, it just becomes, okay, I've gone through 101 of XYZ skilling, and that's about it all. I've really not used it
Mm-hmm.
in either the client situations, or in terms of the way I come across with my colleagues, or in terms of how I've really come together as a team, driving that ownership in terms of getting that project up and running.
Yeah.
So I think, I just wish more organizations took it the full circle, rather than leaving it halfway in terms of saying, okay, I have the best content,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you go and now figure it out, and ensure that you kind of pass this exam. So if it's just going to stop there, then there's only so much value you get out of it. So I think the key was to kind of keep nudging
Mm-hmm.
till it really became a habit. Because, um, and by the way, when I say learning, I also mean unlearning in the process,
Yeah.
because a lot of it is, uh, this is what made me successful so far, and probably I should just keep at it. Where times have changed, the styles have changed, the people have changed. So you got to change your style of leadership as well. So there's a lot of unlearning, especially the older folks,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what got them this far, and how do you really unlearn that, and be successful in different ways.
And that unlearning point is often more difficult than just
Yeah,
learning a new
absolutely.
capability, skill, focusing on something that is that's
Yeah,
entirely
yeah,
new. And we know that. And this point of when you acquire some new knowledge, often people are very engaged. And one of the things that I really notice around the way humans perform in an organization is it's not that they don't want to apply that learning. It's that there is so much that they are having to do. There is continuous new information. There are continuous initiatives from organizations. And I often call it kind of the noise that businesses have. And so often it isn't necessarily the learner not wanting to apply that. There is something more structural going on. So in all of that noise and information overload, how can leaders take that and as you describe it, Sunita, take a habit and really focus on it and embed it? And so there's two parts to this question, Sunita. One is, what can the leaders do, and then what can the organization do to put in some infrastructure to support that application
yeah,
of learning to really
yeah,
drive value out
yeah.
of investment?
So I think organizations are getting it more uh, of late, Joanna, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
because they realize that the big bucks spent on just the content and getting people through those training courses is not good enough. So I'm happy to see more and more organizations going down the path of seeing, hence, what change did it bring in,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? And if I look at it from the leader's standpoint, one thing that has really helped is just listening, doing those debriefs, those micro learning moments. Like I said, as simple as you've gone in for a big client presentation, for example. uh, what did you learn from it?
Mm-hmm.
What are, what could you have done better? If these are conversations that you have right after, rather than wait till whether you won the order or not, but it's micro learning for the teams who've actually spent their time getting everyone together, debriefing on it. So I think it's those habits of, did I do it? Did I learn from it?
Mm-hmm.
What mistakes will I not repeat?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that becomes the culture of the organization. So I don't really look at it as classroom training as much as day to day on the job,
Mm-hmm.
the feedbacks that you get, the feedback that you get from your peers, because it's not always that it has to be a manager. From my teams, we had this lovely reverse mentoring, and believe me, the amount I learned from someone way junior in terms of just style of working, in terms of style of communication,
Yeah.
you know I think I think these are those learning moments which really matter, which really move the needle. So, and hence, my emphasis on behavioral shift in the organization. So don't go for those big bang transformation projects that you take up. Yes, you spend a lot of money in terms of, replacing systems, etc. But those systems are useless if people really don't work cohesively to make those systems really
Yeah.
give its best.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can do only if there is trust, that you can do only if they feel like one team who's wanting to win together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
That team point is fundamental, isn't it? People, the way people feel about where they are, it's primarily about the 10, 12, 20 people that you're
Yeah.
interacting with. But also, we know that we are more likely to sustain a habit if others are doing around that same thing around us. And in this point where there is so much going on, and there always is so much going on in organizations, I often talk about focusing on a smaller number of things for your organizational context that's going to have the greatest impact,
Yeah.
and over engineer that to an extent. And I know that you've looked at this a little bit, where you really define for an organization what are those behaviors that for that context are the one that drive performance in the
Yeah. Yeah.
in the business. Could you talk a little around that,
Yeah.
Sunita? Because I think it's quite a different approach from, we know that we have this type of capability and we need to build that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the one big one, or rather the way one should go about it, I believe very strongly, is the context matters.
Mm-hmm.
As an organization, what is it that you do well, which you don't do well? What is it that um, is not allowing you to really be your best in the market,
Yeah.
right? If you can just break that down, there is a little bit of brainstorming required. There's a little bit of vulnerability required, because I have to be open enough to say, hey, I do this well and I don't do this so well. And
Mm-hmm.
this is something that I
Mm-hmm.
really want
Mm-hmm.
help on. People seeking help, and a lot of times, I think when you call yourself a leader, the expectation is that I should have all the answers,
Yeah.
that I've risen to this position because of, having the knowledge, having the skill, being in control, knowing exactly what will happen the next day. And that's not how the world is today.
Mm-hmm.
So if I really need to get the best from my team, I think it is the openness, it is the trust, it is the camaraderie, it's the honesty, it's the vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of those come into play. And until and unless we are willing to bare ourselves
Yeah.
and say, this is what I'm good at, this is not what I'm good at, and this is where I need help, and as a team, this is what we will do. So I think all we did was break that down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And say, hey, we've noticed that, simple thing, I send you a calendar invite, you don't even respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating. because there's someone else who sent it to you for a reason, right? Because they genuinely want to have that
Mhm,
connect.
mhm,
Or leaders feeling that, it's not a great news, so let me just keep quiet about it, let me not communicate that to the teams. But the point is, good or bad, people need to know what's happening.
mhm,
So I think we just picked those simple things. I mean, might look extremely basic, but these were those make or break points in the organization, which was not letting the teams move forward.
mhm,
So I
mhm.
think if organizations can, and that's what I said, it's very different to different companies. So at least what I have seen, as I consult with other companies, is that the pain points can be very different. And
Mhm.
as a result of which, if you're open enough to bear that and to actually work on it with the teams alongside you, uh, that's where you really make the difference and you make the needle move. So I think it's a combination of um, picking the right areas,
Yeah.
number one. Number two, of leaders being open and honest enough to say, yes, this is a red and I'm going to work on it.
Mhm, mhm.
And three, take the accountability and have the courage to see it, till its final step.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's easy to kind of say, okay, I've done this for a couple of months now, let me just go back to the way I was. So
Mhm,
I think if you can see it through, is where the real impact is.
mhm, mhm. And I think that that point of, seeing it through, and often we can do think something because we know there is driving some outcomes, but it's sustaining that as a way of an organization working at scale. Coming back to the role of leadership, we know that there is a great amount of uncertainty. There's always change, it's the way that businesses operate. But given that there is a number of disruptors, there's often uncertainty in any organization, in any context. What are some of the habits that you think are ones that leaders that navigate uncertainty really well display? What are some of those behaviors, characteristics that you see in leaders?
I think the number one is, like I said, are you listening enough?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I go back to the earlier point, Johanna. For leaders, accepting that I don't know this is very hard.
Mm-hmm.
At least to show it
Yeah.
is very hard. As a result of which you camouflage it. You put up a front which is not authentic, and the unfortunate part is people can see through it.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't last long as a true leader if you put up that kind of a front. So the first is in terms of, like I said, genuinely listening, because
Mm-hmm.
ideas, innovation can come from anywhere, and today information is spread really across the organization. So you never know where it comes from. So are you building a culture where people feel safe
Mm-hmm.
to come up with their ideas, even if some of them can be really dumb ideas? I
Yeah,
must say
yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's not that all the ideas have been fantastic. Some of them have been really sad, but that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay, because it gives them the confidence that I can speak up.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's going to be listening. They might evaluate, they might chuck it, they might
Mm-hmm.
go ahead with it, but in my head it was an idea which was good enough to be brought up, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's number one. I think number two is, as a leader, like I said, the teams will do it only if they trust that leader.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that trust is universal, whether it is in the changing time or whichever times.
Yeah.
So if you can build that culture of trust where people know that this is a leader with integrity
Mm-hmm.
who's doing the right things for the organization
Yeah.
and for us as employees in it, and it's not just about she or he trying to steal the limelight and, doing things which make them look good.
Yeah.
uh, I think you've won the trust of people to do anything, to go any distance,
Hmm. Hmm.
for that leader. So
Yeah.
I think these are the two things I would say is absolutely critical, and people should cultivate in good or bad times.
Yeah.
It'll only stand good for them.
Yes. Yeah. No. Absolutely. And I think that 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 trust is often given really easily, but when it's broken, it's
Yeah,
very, very difficult
yeah,
to build it
absolutely.
back. Um, and I was wondering, Sunita, how do you think leaders build trust well?
Building trust, well, I think a simple thing of walking the talk. To
Yeah.
me, it's like, uh, what you say is what you do, and,
Mm.
and people can see that there's no difference between
Yeah.
the two. So I think that's to me is a number one. I think two is also in terms of, are you honest enough to call a spade when it's required?
Yeah.
Because the greatest disservice I would do to that individual is to give them um, false hopes,
Hmm. Hmm.
and finally try to kind of take the cover of, oh, the organization asked me to do this, and I had no role to play. But you were the manager, right? you
Hmm.
had you had all the time to give them the right feedback at the right time,
Hmm.
which may have helped them improve.
Hmm.
And today it's too late,
Yeah.
right? So I think a few of these basics is what's critical to build trust with the
Hmm.
teams.
Hmm.
And it's such a basic one, Johanna, that I've seen leaders either have it or they don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know and the ones who don't, we just say, four five things. If you can do this consistently,
Hmm.
and it may be difficult in the beginning, but if you can show up for your teams, if you can if you can be there, if you can have their backs even when things go wrong, uh, if you're seen as a leader who's not just trying to create your own image, but for the larger good of the organization. If you're seen as a leader who, in fact, not just the organization, I would say for the larger good of society, because
Yeah.
a lot of leaders I know, it's not just what they do from a business lens, but also the lens that they have, of the community that they're in, of
Yeah.
the society that we work in. So I think these are a few of the things that really help
Hmm.
in terms of building that muscle,
Yes. Yeah.
and yeah, and getting the trust of your teams.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you touched a little bit on reverse mentoring and the impact that's had on yourself and other leaders. And my last question, Sunita, is for the generation of leaders that are entering the workforce now, what do you think about how the way in which they're coming into the place of work is going to potentially shift some of the ways that we see organizations operating? We know that there are businesses that are growing significantly with smaller groups of people, and there's so many things that are really interesting in the way that organizations are forming. But specifically thinking about the generation of leaders that are entering the workplace now, what do you think about that leadership population?
I think the first one, Johanna, to me is the comfort of working with humans and bots, which is something that probably our generation didn't see as much.
Hmm.
Um, I think that'll be a big one, because at least in a lot of places, I grew because I had great teams, large teams under me, and I was in control of it. And, I managed their day to day. And that's probably going to shift because it's going to be a combination of bots and maybe few people
Mm-hmm.
in the teams. So the kind of agency you have over their
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
is probably going to be a question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Two, I would say for the generation of leaders who come in now, I think a lot of what we believe is good business
Mm-hmm.
will continue. So, for
Yep.
example, the fundamentals of client success, the fundamentals of empathy, the
Mm-hmm.
fundamentals of being one team, the fundamentals of giving honest feedback. So, I don't think those are going to change. It's probably just the change in me as a leader knowing it all to me as a leader getting it done from the teams that can exist anywhere in the organization,
Yeah.
teams which could consist of humans and bots. so
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's probably the biggest change that I expect to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But otherwise the fundamentals are still going to be the same
Thank you,
finally.
thank you, Sunita, and thank you so much for being here today on our podcast. It's been a privilege to have you here, for you to share your insights, and thank you, Sunita.
Thank you so
It's
much,
been
Joanna. I just
wonderful.
love this conversation.